You've seen the headlines. Talk of wealth taxes, unrealised capital gains, tougher rules for dual citizens, and a general sense that high earners and savers are being treated as a problem to be solved. Welcome back to another Passport to Possibility. Today, I'm again joined by Jennifer Harding Marin, and we're going to ask a very simple question. Has the war on success actually begun in Europe, in North America and Australia? And if so, what can ordinary, successful people do besides panic or pretend it isn't happening? Let's get into it. So, Jennifer, when clients talk about a war on success, what do they mean? Is that just social media rhetoric, or is there something real behind it?
It usually reflects a combination of trends: higher marginal tax rates, new wealth taxes that are proposed, tighter reporting obligations, and more aggressive enforcement. In parts of Europe, there have been serious discussions about taxing large unrealized gains or imposing broader net worth taxes on individuals. And there's also growing political rhetoric that frames high net worth individuals as an easy source of revenue, which makes people feel targeted even before any law changes. So while war is a strong word, there's a clear direction of travel towards more complexity, more scrutiny, and for some people, higher effective tax burdens.
Right, it isn't just clickbait. There are real policy moves and real rhetoric that makes productive people feel less like partners and more like ATMs. Even if the most extreme ideas don't make it into law, not for the moment anyway. Now, the Netherlands has approved a new tax on personal wealth that will apply from 2028, where many investments and assets will be taxed based on their actual yearly returns, including increases in value that you may not have cashed out yet. In plain language, what would an unrealised gains tax like this actually mean for ordinary investors, and why does it worry people so much?
I want to start off by saying that I'm not a tax advisor, and this does not constitute tax advice, and you should seek out a qualified tax attorney. And I will speak for broad informational purposes and not in the capacity as an attorney. In simple terms, an unrealized gains tax charges you on the increase in value of your assets, shares, property, even private businesses, before you sell and before you actually have cash in hand. From 2028, the Netherlands' new Box 3 system will tax actual returns on many investments each year, including increases in value that haven't been realized. So residents can face annual tax bills on portfolios even if nothing has been sold. So the core problem is liquidity. So people may be forced to sell long-term positions or family assets just to pay the tax on paper gains that could later disappear. So similar markets, mark-to-markets, and wealth tax approaches in countries such as Denmark and Norway already create this pressure for some investors. And these systems also distort behavior. So pushing people away from volatile or entrepreneurial assets and toward things that are easier to value and tax annually, or into structures and jurisdictions designed to fall outside the net. So even when drafted only for the very rich, like US billionaire tax proposals that explicitly include unrealized gains, they signal a willingness to use very intrusive tools. And once one country establishes a model, others can copy the logic and change the thresholds and extend it further, which is what really unsettles entrepreneurs and long-term investors.
Unrealised gains ideas are frightening, not just because the numbers can be big, but because they flip the deal. You pay for maybe profits that can vanish, whilst trusting that politicians won't keep raising rates, lowering thresholds, or copying the harshest versions from abroad. The recently announced Dutch tax reform is a live example of how a technical change can quickly become a template, which is why globally minded investors and potential imitators will watch it so closely. So given moves like the Netherlands' new Box 3 wealth tax rules and other experiments with taxing wealth and unrealised gains, where does second citizenship by investment, or changing residency actually help, and where do they not help at all?
So changing residency to a lower tax or more predictable jurisdiction can potentially reduce your exposure to certain national tax experiments, especially for capital gains and wealth taxes. However, it depends on your specific ties and timing, and again, get specific tax advice specific to your situation. And a second citizenship can make it easier to leave a country that introduces punitive rules or to avoid being trapped by future exit tax regimes. However, for US citizens worldwide, taxation remains a reality until and unless they expatriate, so simply moving or getting another passport does not remove all obligations. And even outside the US, you have to consider exit taxes, anti-avoidance rules, and treaty networks. There's no one magic jurisdiction that solves everything.
Right, so passports and residencies aren't magic levers, not magic wands. They can change which playbook applies to you and how much policy risk you carry, but you still need a serious tax plan, not just a new stamp in your passport. For successful professionals or business owners, what are some realistic ethical ways to respond to this war on success feeling and all these new tax experiments?
So first, to separate emotion from action and understand your current tax position and how proposed changes would actually affect you rather than just simply reacting to headlines. And second would be to explore alternative tax residency options that align with your lifestyle, countries with territorial systems, flat taxes, or clear lump sum regimes, for example. And third would be consider diversifying jurisdictional risk, a second citizenship, a residency in a different region, or international investments that give you more options. And fourth would be to build a professional team, tax, legal, immigration, advisory, and more that can help you adapt as rules evolve instead of leaving you to react in panic.
So the real move isn't outrage, it's engineering. Understand the rules, decide how much exposure you're willing to tolerate, and then use the tools that exist, residencies, citizenship by investment, to work for you. Bringing it back to mindset, Jen, what's the difference between someone who thrives through these changes and someone who ends up feeling hunted by their own passport?
The people who thrive tend to treat their citizenship and residency as strategic choices and not accidents of birth that they're stuck with forever. So they move early before they're forced to, and they see investing in options, a second citizenship, a new base, diversified assets as normal part of risk management. And they also stay compliant and transparent, which reduces the fear factor when regulations tighten. And those who struggle often delay, assume it won't really affect me, and only act after a painful change does occur and when the best options may already have narrowed.
So thriving isn't about playing games. It's about refusing to be a stationary target. If you treat your current passport as the only possible setting for your life, any changes, it feels like a war on you personally. If you treat it as one of several tools, you have room to maneuver. If you're feeling that slow squeeze, more tax, more paperwork, more suspicion, the answer isn't to panic or to bury your head in the sand. It's to get informed, get options, and get ahead of the curve while you still have time. Rules can change fast, as we've just seen. But if you move before you're cornered, you have far more options. In our next video, we're going somewhere we infrequently talk about, the South Pacific. We'll look at Vanuatu's long-running program and Nauru's newer citizenship by investment offer, including a limited time 30% discount, and ask whether a Pacific passport actually deserves a place in your plan B. If that sounds interesting, hit subscribe, turn on notifications so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next Passport Possibility.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thanks, Jen.